you. Well, it's very good to be with you this morning. We have quite a liturgy in front of us today, so I promise that my preaching will not go on very long. This is what we call everything but the kitchen sink liturgy, because it's got everything in it. And I said to Laurel, you know, there are a few more things we could add in here, but all right. Am I still, can you still hear me, but I'm not echoing? We're good? All right. And I'm really glad to see dogs in church, and cats as well. We had a border collie that used to attend church with us, and the first time that she did so, as typical of border collies, she knew exactly what to do. So people thought we had trained her for liturgy, but we hadn't. She was just smart. But when it came to my sermon, preaching my sermon, she felt free to offer commentary along the entire way. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens today. You know, when we think of St. Francis, we think of animals, right? That is our thought when it comes to St. Francis. How many of you have the statue of St. Francis in your yard around your house? Yeah, a few of you do. We do too. It's right by our front door. And it is, in fact, really amazing because many people who are not church-going people or may not even necessarily know the name of that particular saint do have that saint in their yards, in their gardens. And I'm always curious as to why, but I think it has something to do with that special attention, just sort of the cursory sense that this saint is something to do with nature and gardens and animals. And certainly, there were plenty of stories about St. Francis and the animals. But the story is actually much bigger than that. And so I did a little research, and I went through an entire biography of St. Francis's life. And as I was going through, I counted 19 different roles that he played throughout his life. Now, I'm not going to read all 19 to you, but I can tell you that he was a soldier and he was a prisoner. He was a pilgrim, a mystic, servant, a nurse, a preacher, a healer, a deacon, a missionary. Those are just to name a few. If you read the story of his life, you will see that he was very busy and he was extremely restless. And at one point, he made the comment where he said, if God can work through me, God can work through anybody. And if you read his story, you can see what a very restless human being he was. And his parents must have had a really hard time with him, which I think they did. In fact, his father at one point was trying to sue him. And I cannot even imagine being his bishop. I think of those things now. Because I just would not have known what to do with him. As you know, eventually he donned a tunic and tied a rope around it and became an itinerant preacher. And he began wandering all over the place preaching. And it was interesting to me because in the stories, they talk about him preaching to the animals. But I have a feeling that it was something completely different. I think the animals preached to him. Because when you're out walking all those many miles, when you are out among people, away from people, among the animals, and you're eyes and your ears and your senses are fully attuned to nature, you suddenly start to hear God's creation that is speaking to you. We just have to pause and listen a bit. Not too long ago, in fact, a few months ago, I read a book by Amy Tan, who wrote The Joy Luck Club. Yeah. And the book that she wrote was called The Backyard Bird Chronicles. How many of you have read that book? Yes, you know what I'm talking about. She writes about all the bird feeders that she sets up in her backyard, and she learns to study them and to be aware of them and to commune with them and observe them. And she starts to try to draw them, and she can't draw them very well because that's really not her thing, right? But as she learns to do that, and then she starts to just talk about what they are like. And then there's one point where she goes out to where the bird feeders are, and she stands right by the bird feeder. And the birds stay there. And she can see their eyes, and she can see the detail of them and their feathers. And she writes about just that moment. So I decided to try that with my bird feeders. And so I went and I stood about 18 inches from my bird feeders. And to my amazement, there they were. They sat there. And they looked at me, and I looked at them. And I could see the details of all the different colors in their feathers. And we just were there for a little while. And I thought to myself, there is so much I do not know. There is so much that I do not know about God's created world. There's so much that I am not paying attention to. The Feast of St. Francis invites us to pay attention to the created world, to go out, to fill our senses, to become advocates for all of creation, to know that maybe those birds in my backyard are my neighbor too. I want to leave you with a prayer of St. Francis that I think is a great way to start every day. Lord, help me to live this day quietly, easily, to lean upon thy great strength, trustfully, restfully, to wait for the unfolding of thy will, patiently, serenely, to meet others peacefully, joyfully, to face tomorrow confidently, courageously. May it be so. Amen.
Amen.